What if I told you that right now, at this very moment, you are operating at maybe 10% of your true mental capacity? That every time you give up, every moment you hesitate, every decision you avoid making, you are essentially surrendering to a version of yourself that was never meant to exist. You see, most people live their entire lives as mental weaklings, not because they lack the capacity for strength, but because they never learned how to develop it. The difference between those who crumble under pressure and those who thrive in chaos isn't genetics, isn't luck, and it certainly isn't circumstance. It's mental strength. It's the ability to control your mind when everything around you is falling apart. It's the capacity to push forward when every fiber of your being wants to quit. It's the skill of turning pain into power, setbacks into comebacks, and failures into fuel. But here's what nobody tells you about mental strength. It's not something you're born with. It's not a talent reserved for the chosen few. Mental strength is a skill, and like any skill, it can be developed, trained, and mastered. The problem is that most people never receive the proper training. They stumble through life, hoping they'll magically become stronger, tougher, more resilient. But hope without strategy is just wishful thinking. This isn't another motivational speech filled with empty promises and feel-good platitudes. This is a systematic breakdown of how to forge unbreakable mental strength. You're about to learn the exact psychological principles, practical techniques, and daily habits that will transform you from someone who occasionally gives up to someone who literally cannot be stopped. By the time we're done, losing won't even be an option in your vocabulary, because you'll have built a mind so strong that failure becomes nothing more than feedback, and obstacles become opportunities to prove just how unbreakable you've become. Chapter 1. The Mental Strength Revolution. Right now, there are two types of people in this world. The first type crumbles when things get difficult. They make excuses. They blame circumstances. They quit when the going gets tough. And they spend their lives wondering what could have been if only they had pushed through. The second type faces the exact same challenges, the exact same setbacks, the exact same painful moments, but they respond completely differently. They get stronger, they adapt, they overcome. They turn every obstacle into a stepping stone, and every setback into a setup for a comeback. The difference between these two types of people isn't intelligence, talent, or even opportunity. The difference is mental strength. And here's the truth that will change everything for you. Mental strength is not a genetic lottery. It's not something you either have or you don't. Mental strength is a skill that can be developed, trained, and mastered by anyone willing to put in the work. But before we dive into how to build this strength, you need to understand what mental strength actually is, because most people have it completely wrong. Mental strength isn't about being emotionless. It's not about never feeling fear, doubt, or pain. Mental strength is about feeling those emotions and choosing to act in alignment with your goals anyway. It's about experiencing setbacks and refusing to let them define your future. It's about facing uncertainty with confidence and turning pressure into performance. Think about the strongest people you know, the ones who seem unshakable no matter what life throws at them. They didn't become that way by avoiding challenges. They became that way by facing challenges head-on, over and over again, until their mental muscles became so strong that what would break most people only makes them more determined. The mentally strong don't avoid pain, they use it. They don't fear failure, they learn from it. They don't run from difficulty, they run toward it, because they understand something that weak people never figure out. Every challenge you overcome makes you stronger for the next one. Every time you push through when you want to quit, you're literally rewiring your brain for resilience. Every moment you choose courage over comfort, you're building mental muscle that will serve you for the rest of your life. But here's where most people go wrong. They think mental strength is about being tough all the time, about never showing weakness, about handling everything alone. That's not mental strength, that's stupidity. True mental strength includes knowing when to ask for help, when to rest, when to adjust your strategy. It includes emotional intelligence, self-awareness, and the wisdom to know that being strong doesn't mean being rigid. The mentally strong are also mentally flexible. They adapt to changing circumstances without losing sight of their core values and long-term goals. They can pivot without panic, adjust without anxiety, and change course without losing confidence in their ability to reach their destination. Mental strength is also about consistency over intensity. It's not about having one moment of incredible willpower that burns out quickly. It's about showing up every single day, especially when you don't feel like it. It's about doing what needs to be done regardless of your mood, your circumstances, or your current level of motivation. The weak wait for motivation to strike. The strong create momentum through action. The weak make decisions based on how they feel. The strong make decisions based on who they want to become. The weak let their emotions control their actions. The strong use their actions to control their emotions. Here's what you need to understand. Your current level of mental strength is not your permanent level. Every single day, you have the opportunity to become mentally stronger. Every challenge you face is a training session. Every setback is a chance to practice resilience. Every moment of doubt is an opportunity to choose faith in yourself over fear of the unknown. But you have to choose it. Mental strength doesn't develop accidentally. It doesn't happen by hoping or wishing or waiting for the right circumstances. It happens by deliberately putting yourself in situations that require you to be stronger than you were yesterday. It happens by consistently choosing the difficult path when the easy path is available. It happens by training your mind the same way athletes train their bodies, with intention, consistency, and progressive overload. The revolution starts with a simple recognition. You are capable of far more than you currently believe. Your mind is more powerful than you've been using it. Your capacity for resilience is greater than you've been accessing. The only question is whether you're ready to stop settling for mediocrity and start building the mental strength that will transform every area of your life. Chapter 2. The Psychology of Unbreakable Minds. To build unbreakable mental strength, you first need to understand how the mind actually works, because most people are operating with a completely incorrect understanding of their own psychology. They think their thoughts just happen to them randomly, that their emotions are beyond their control, and that their mental patterns are fixed and unchangeable. This is not only wrong, it's the exact mindset that keeps people mentally weak. Your mind is not a passenger in your life, it's the driver. And if you don't learn to control the driver, you'll spend your entire life wondering why you keep ending up in places you never wanted to go. The science of neuroplasticity has proven beyond any doubt that your brain is constantly changing, constantly rewiring itself based on your thoughts, actions, and experiences. This means that every single day, you are literally sculpting your own mind. The mentally weak sculpt minds of limitation, fear, and defeat. The mentally strong sculpt minds of possibility, courage, and victory. The difference is not in their starting material, it's in their understanding of the process and their commitment to the work. Let's start with how your brain processes challenges and setbacks. When you face a difficult situation, your brain immediately scans its database of past experiences to predict what will happen. If your database is filled with memories of giving up, making excuses, and avoiding challenges, your brain will predict failure and flood your system with stress hormones designed to make you avoid the situation. But if your database is filled with memories of perseverance, problem-solving, and pushing through difficulties, your brain will predict success and flood your system with the neurochemicals needed for peak performance. This is why your past doesn't determine your future, but your interpretation of your past absolutely does. The unbreakable mind has learned to reframe every experience as either a success or a learning opportunity. There is no failure in the vocabulary of mental strength, only feedback. When something doesn't go as planned, the mentally strong don't waste time on regret or self-pity. They immediately shift into analysis mode. What can I learn from this? How can I do better next time? What skills do I need to develop? What adjustments do I need to make? This reframing isn't just positive thinking, it's strategic thinking. It's the recognition that every setback contains valuable information that can make you stronger if you're willing to extract it. The mentally weak see setbacks as proof that they should quit. The mentally strong see setbacks as proof that they're pushing their limits and growing. Another crucial aspect of unbreakable psychology is the concept of internal versus external locus of control. People with an external locus of control believe that their outcomes are primarily determined by factors outside their influence: luck, other people, circumstances, the economy, the weather. This mindset makes them perpetual victims of their environment. People with an internal locus of control believe that their outcomes are primarily determined by their own choices, actions, and responses. This doesn't mean they ignore external factors. It means they focus their energy on what they can control rather than what they can't. This single shift in perspective is often the difference between a life of frustration and a life of empowerment. The unbreakable mind operates from a foundation of radical responsibility. This means taking ownership not just of your actions, but of your responses to everything that happens to you. You can't control what happens to you, but you can control what happens in you. You can't control external events, but you can control your internal response to those events. This level of responsibility is initially uncomfortable because it means you can't blame anyone else for your results, but it's ultimately liberating because it means you have the power to change your results. Mental strength also requires understanding the difference between pain and suffering. Pain is inevitable. It's the natural result of growth, challenge, and pushing your limits. Suffering is optional. It's the story you tell yourself about the pain. When you stub your toe, the physical sensation is pain. The mental drama about how unfair it is, how much your day is ruined, how nothing ever goes right for you, that's suffering. The mentally strong experience pain just like everyone else, but they don't add layers of mental suffering on top of it. They feel the sensation, acknowledge it, and move forward. They don't create elaborate narratives about what the pain means about them, their future, or their worth. They simply deal with reality as it is, not as they wish it were or fear it might become. This brings us to one of the most important psychological principles of mental strength: acceptance versus resistance. What you resist persists. What you accept transforms. This doesn't mean being passive or giving up. It means acknowledging reality clearly so you can respond to it effectively. When you're in denial about a problem, you can't solve it. When you're angry about a situation, you waste energy that could be used to change it. When you accept that this is where you are right now, you free up all your mental and emotional resources to focus on where you want to go. The unbreakable mind also understands the power of identity-based thinking. Most people try to change their behaviors without changing their identity, and this is why most change efforts fail. If you see yourself as someone who gives up when things get tough, you'll find ways to give up. If you see yourself as someone who perseveres no matter what, you'll find ways to keep going. Your identity is not fixed. It's a choice you make every single day through your actions. Every time you do something that aligns with the person you want to become, you reinforce that identity. Every time you do something that contradicts the person you want to become, you weaken it. The key is to start small and be consistent. You don't become mentally strong by making one heroic effort. You become mentally strong by making countless small choices that compound over time. Understanding these psychological principles is just the beginning. The real transformation happens when you apply them consistently in your daily life. Your mind is watching everything you do, and it's drawing conclusions about who you are based on your actions. Make sure those conclusions are supporting the mental strength you're trying to build. Chapter 3. Rewiring your brain for resilience. Your brain is not hardwired for your current level of mental strength. Every neural pathway, every automatic response, every habitual thought pattern that currently defines your mental landscape was created through repetition and can be changed through different repetition. This is the most liberating truth you'll ever encounter. You are not stuck with the mind you currently have. The process of rewiring your brain for resilience begins with understanding how neural pathways work. Think of your brain as a forest. Every time you have a thought or perform an action, you're creating a path through that forest. The first time you walk the path, it's difficult. You have to push through underbrush and navigate around obstacles. But the more you walk that same path, the clearer it becomes, until eventually it becomes a highway that your mind travels automatically without conscious effort. Right now, you have highways in your brain for your current patterns of thinking and responding. If you tend to worry, you have a worry highway. If you tend to give up when things get difficult, you have a giving up highway. If you tend to focus on what's wrong instead of what's possible, you have a negativity highway. The good news is that you can build new highways, and when you stop using the old ones, they literally begin to deteriorate and disappear. The process of building resilience highways in your brain requires 3 elements: awareness, interruption, and redirection. First, you must become aware of your current mental patterns. You can't change what you don't notice. Start paying attention to your automatic thoughts, especially during challenging situations. What's your default response when something goes wrong? What story does your mind immediately tell you about setbacks? What emotions do you automatically feel when facing uncertainty? Most people never examine their mental patterns, they just experience them. But examining them is the first step to changing them. You are not your thoughts. You are the observer of your thoughts. This distinction is crucial because it means you have the power to evaluate your thoughts and choose which ones to follow. Once you've developed awareness of your current patterns, the next step is interruption. When you catch yourself going down a familiar mental path that doesn't serve you, you need to consciously interrupt the pattern. This can be as simple as saying, "Stop" out loud, taking 3 deep breaths, or asking yourself, "Is this thought helping me or hurting me?" The key is to catch the pattern as early as possible. The longer you let yourself spiral down a negative mental path, the harder it becomes to change direction. But if you can catch it early and interrupt it consistently, you begin to weaken that neural pathway. The third element is redirection. Interrupting negative patterns is not enough. You need to redirect your mental energy toward patterns that build resilience. This is where you consciously choose thoughts and actions that align with the mental strength you're building. Instead of thinking, "This is too hard, I can't handle it," you redirect to, "This is challenging, and I'm becoming stronger by facing it." Instead of thinking, "Why does this always happen to me?" you redirect to, "What can I learn from this situation?" Instead of thinking, "I'm not good enough," you redirect to, "I'm growing and improving every day." This isn't positive thinking for the sake of feeling good. This is strategic thinking for the sake of building resilience. Every time you redirect your thoughts in this way, you're literally carving out new neural pathways that will eventually become your default responses. The brain also responds powerfully to visualization and mental rehearsal. Athletes have known this for decades. They spend almost as much time mentally practicing their sport as they do physically practicing it. You can use the same technique to build mental resilience by visualizing yourself handling challenging situations with strength and composure. Spend time each day mentally rehearsing scenarios where you might be tempted to give up, and visualize yourself pushing through instead. See yourself staying calm under pressure, making good decisions when stressed, and maintaining your composure when others are losing theirs. The more vividly and consistently you visualize these scenarios, the more prepared your brain will be to actually perform this way when the real situations arise. Another powerful technique for rewiring your brain is the practice of cognitive reframing. This involves consciously changing the way you interpret events and circumstances. Instead of seeing obstacles as roadblocks, you train yourself to see them as training equipment. Instead of seeing setbacks as evidence that you should quit, you see them as evidence that you're pushing your limits and growing. The language you use, both internally and externally, also plays a crucial role in rewiring your brain. Words are not just communication tools, they're programming tools. When you say, "I have to," instead of, "I get to," you're programming your brain to see your responsibilities as burdens instead of opportunities. When you say, "I can't," instead of, "I haven't figured out how yet," you're programming your brain for limitation instead of possibility. Start paying attention to your language patterns and consciously choose words that reinforce resilience. Instead of saying, "This is impossible," say, "This is challenging." Instead of saying, "I always mess up," say, "I'm learning and improving." Instead of saying, "I can't handle this," say, "I'm stronger than I realize." Physical practices also contribute significantly to rewiring your brain for resilience. Regular exercise doesn't just strengthen your body, it literally changes your brain structure, increasing the production of BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which promotes the growth of new neural connections. Cold exposure, whether through cold showers or ice baths, has been shown to increase resilience by training your nervous system to stay calm under stress. Meditation and mindfulness practices are particularly powerful for building resilience because they train your ability to observe your thoughts without being controlled by them. When you can watch your thoughts without immediately reacting to them, you gain the space needed to choose your response rather than being driven by automatic patterns. The key to all of these techniques is consistency. Your brain changes slowly, gradually, through repeated exposure to new patterns. You can't rewire decades of conditioning with a few days of effort. But if you're consistent with these practices, if you make them part of your daily routine, you will begin to notice significant changes in your mental patterns within weeks and dramatic changes within months. Remember, every moment of every day, your brain is either strengthening patterns of resilience or patterns of weakness. There is no neutral. Every thought you think, every action you take, every response you choose is either building the mental strength you want or reinforcing the mental weakness you're trying to overcome. Choose wisely, choose consistently, and watch your brain transform itself into an unbreakable force. Chapter 4. The Foundation of Mental Toughness. Mental toughness is not about being harsh with yourself or others. It's not about suppressing emotions or pretending that difficulties don't affect you. True mental toughness is built on a foundation of 4 core principles: clarity of purpose, emotional regulation, consistent action, and adaptive resilience. Master these 4 elements, and you'll develop a level of mental toughness that will carry you through any challenge life presents. Let's start with clarity of purpose. Because without a clear understanding of why you're doing what you're doing, mental toughness becomes nothing more than stubborn suffering. Your purpose is your North Star, the fixed point that keeps you oriented when everything around you is chaotic and uncertain. People with clear purpose don't quit, because they're not just fighting for temporary comfort or immediate pleasure. They're fighting for something bigger than themselves. But here's what most people get wrong about purpose. They think it has to be some grand, world-changing mission. Your purpose doesn't have to save humanity or revolutionize an industry. Your purpose just has to be meaningful enough to pull you through the inevitable moments when you want to quit. It could be providing a better life for your family, proving to yourself that you can achieve something difficult, or simply becoming the best version of yourself possible. The key is that your purpose must be intrinsic, not extrinsic. If your motivation depends entirely on external validation, recognition, or rewards, it will fail you when those external factors disappear or become insufficient. But if your motivation comes from internal values, personal growth, and authentic meaning, it becomes virtually unshakable. Take time to identify what truly matters to you, not what you think should matter or what others expect to matter to you. What would you pursue, even if no one was watching? What would you continue working toward, even if progress was slow and recognition was non-existent? That's where you'll find the foundation of unshakable mental toughness. The second pillar of mental toughness is emotional regulation. This doesn't mean emotional suppression. It means emotional mastery. Emotions are information. They're your internal guidance system, telling you how you're interpreting your current situation. The mentally tough don't ignore this information. They process it efficiently and then choose their response based on their goals rather than their feelings. Emotional regulation starts with recognition. You can't manage what you don't acknowledge. Start paying attention to your emotional patterns throughout the day. What triggers anger, frustration, or discouragement in you? What situations tend to make you feel overwhelmed or anxious? What thoughts tend to generate fear or self-doubt? Once you can recognize your emotional patterns, you can begin to manage them. This involves several techniques. First, create space between stimulus and response. When something triggers a strong emotional reaction, pause before acting. Take 3 deep breaths, count to 10, Or simply ask yourself, what response would serve my goals best in this situation? Second, question your emotional interpretations. Often, our emotional reactions are based on assumptions or interpretations that may not be accurate. When you feel frustrated because someone didn't respond to your message, ask yourself if there might be other explanations besides the ones that make you feel bad. When you feel overwhelmed by a challenge, ask yourself if the challenge is actually as impossible as it feels, or if you're just outside your comfort zone. Third, use physical techniques to regulate your emotional state. Your body and mind are connected, and you can influence your mental state through physical actions. When you're feeling anxious, slow down your breathing and relax your muscles. When you're feeling low energy, change your posture and move your body. When you're feeling overwhelmed, go for a walk or do some light exercise. The third pillar of mental toughness is consistent action. Mental toughness is not a feeling, it's a behavior. It's not about feeling brave, it's about acting courageously. It's not about feeling motivated, it's about showing up regardless of motivation. The mentally tough understand that action creates motivation more reliably than motivation creates action. Consistency is more powerful than intensity. It's better to do something small every day than to do something big occasionally. If you want to build physical strength, you don't go to the gym once and lift weights for 8 hours. You go to the gym regularly and gradually increase the challenge over time. Mental toughness works the same way. Create daily practices that require you to do something slightly uncomfortable or challenging. This could be taking cold showers, waking up earlier than you feel like, exercising when you'd rather rest, or working on important tasks when you'd prefer to procrastinate. The specific activity matters less than the consistency of choosing discipline over comfort. Each time you do something you don't feel like doing, you're building mental muscle. Each time you choose long-term benefit over short-term pleasure, you're strengthening your capacity for mental toughness. Each time you follow through on a commitment to yourself, you're proving to your own mind that you can be trusted to do difficult things. The fourth pillar of mental toughness is adaptive resilience. This is the ability to adjust your approach without abandoning your goals. Rigid thinking is a form of mental weakness because it makes you fragile when circumstances change. True mental toughness includes the flexibility to change tactics while maintaining strategic focus. Adaptive resilience requires distinguishing between your core objectives and your specific methods. Your objectives should be firm and unwavering, but your methods should be flexible and responsive to changing conditions. If one approach isn't working, you adapt and try a different approach. If circumstances change, you adjust your tactics. If new information becomes available, you incorporate it into your strategy. This doesn't mean changing your goals every time you encounter difficulty. It means being smart enough to recognize when persistence requires a new approach. Sometimes the most mentally tough thing you can do is admit that your current method isn't working and try something different. Adaptive resilience also includes learning from every experience, whether successful or unsuccessful. Every outcome provides information that can make you stronger and smarter. The mentally tough extract this information efficiently and apply it to future situations. They don't waste time dwelling on what went wrong. They focus on what they can do differently going forward. Building mental toughness is like building physical fitness. It requires consistent training, progressive challenge, adequate recovery, and patience with the process. You don't become mentally tough overnight any more than you become physically fit overnight. But if you commit to developing these 4 pillars, clarity of purpose, emotional regulation, consistent action, and adaptive resilience, you will steadily build a level of mental toughness that will serve you in every area of your life. The foundation you build today will support every challenge you face tomorrow. Make it strong, make it deep, and make it unshakable. Chapter 5. Overcoming the fear of failure. Fear of failure is not just an emotion, it's a prison. It's the invisible force that keeps more people from achieving their potential than any external obstacle ever could. While others are worried about what might go wrong, the mentally strong are focused on what could go right. While others are paralyzed by the possibility of failure, the mentally strong are energized by the possibility of success. But here's what you need to understand about fear of failure. It's not actually fear of failure itself. It's fear of what failure might mean about you. People aren't afraid of making mistakes. They're afraid that making mistakes means they're inadequate, stupid, or unworthy. They're not afraid of setbacks. They're afraid that setbacks prove they don't have what it takes. This is why overcoming fear of failure starts with changing your relationship with failure itself. Failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is part of success. Every person who has achieved anything significant has failed more times than most people have even tried. The difference is that they didn't let failure define them. They let it develop them. They didn't see failure as evidence that they should quit. They saw failure as evidence that they were pushing their limits and learning faster than people who never try anything challenging. The first step in overcoming fear of failure is redefining what failure actually means. Instead of seeing failure as proof of inadequacy, start seeing failure as proof of courage. It takes courage to try something that might not work. It takes courage to put yourself in situations where you might make mistakes. It takes courage to risk looking foolish in pursuit of something meaningful. When you reframe failure as courage in action rather than proof of inadequacy, everything changes. Now, instead of avoiding situations where you might fail, you seek them out because you know that's where growth happens. Instead of being embarrassed by mistakes, you're proud of them because they prove you're pushing your boundaries. The second step is understanding that failure is information, not condemnation. Every failure contains valuable data about what doesn't work, which brings you closer to discovering what does work. Thomas Edison didn't fail 1,000 times before inventing the light bulb. He found 1,000 ways that didn't work, which was essential information for finding the way that did work. When something doesn't go as planned, instead of focusing on what went wrong, focus on what you learned. What assumptions were incorrect? What skills need development? What factors weren't considered? What adjustments need to be made? This shift from judgment to analysis transforms failure from a dead end into a stepping stone. The third step is recognizing that the biggest risk is not failing. It's not trying. Every day you let fear of failure keep you from pursuing your goals is a day lost forever. Every opportunity you pass up because you might not succeed is an opportunity that won't come again. The pain of regret lasts much longer than the pain of failure. When you're debating whether to take a risk that might not work out, ask yourself, what's the worst that could realistically happen, and could I handle that? Usually, the worst-case scenario is much less terrible than your fear makes it seem, and you're much more capable of handling it than you realize. Also ask yourself, what's the cost of not trying? What opportunities will you miss? What growth will you avoid? What version of yourself will you never become? Often, the cost of inaction is far greater than the cost of potential failure. The fourth step is building failure tolerance through progressive exposure. Just like building physical tolerance to cold or heat, you can build psychological tolerance to failure by gradually exposing yourself to situations where failure is possible. Start with low-stakes situations where failure wouldn't be devastating, and gradually work your way up to higher-stakes challenges. This might mean starting conversations with strangers, trying a new hobby where you'll be a beginner, applying for positions that stretch your qualifications, or sharing your ideas even when they might be rejected. Each time you survive failure and keep going, you prove to yourself that failure isn't fatal, and your tolerance for future risks increases. The fifth step is developing a failure recovery system. Instead of hoping you'll never fail, plan for how you'll respond when you do fail. Have a process for extracting lessons from setbacks, adjusting your approach, and getting back into action. When you have a system for dealing with failure, it becomes much less frightening because you know you can handle it. Your failure recovery system might include taking time to process the disappointment without judgment, analyzing what went wrong and what can be improved, identifying the next action step, reaching out to mentors or supporters for perspective, and celebrating the courage it took to try in the first place. The sixth step is surrounding yourself with people who have a healthy relationship with failure. If you're constantly around people who play it safe and avoid risks, their fear will reinforce your own. But if you surround yourself with people who take intelligent risks, learn from setbacks, and keep pursuing their goals despite failures, their courage will inspire your own. Seek out stories of people who have overcome significant failures to achieve success. Study their mindset, their strategies, and their persistence. You'll discover that failure wasn't their enemy, it was their teacher. It wasn't what stopped them, it was what strengthened them. The seventh step is focusing on process rather than outcomes. When your entire sense of success depends on specific outcomes, failure becomes devastating because it means total defeat. But when you focus on the process, on consistently doing the things that increase your chances of success, then failure becomes just one data point in a longer journey. Set process goals alongside outcome goals. Instead of just focusing on, I want to lose 20 pounds, also focus on, I want to exercise 4 times per week and eat vegetables with every meal. Instead of just focusing on, I want to get promoted, also focus on, I want to develop my skills, take on challenging projects, and build strong relationships with colleagues. When you focus on process, you succeed every time you follow through on your commitments, regardless of the ultimate outcome. This makes you much more resilient to setbacks because your sense of progress and achievement isn't dependent on external results that you can't fully control. Remember, courage is not the absence of fear, it's action in the presence of fear. You don't overcome fear of failure by eliminating the fear. You overcome it by developing the strength to act despite the fear. Every time you choose action over avoidance, progress over perfection, and learning over safety, you're building the mental strength that will carry you through any challenge. The people who achieve extraordinary things are not the people who never fail. They're the people who never let failure stop them from trying again. They understand that failure is not the opposite of success. It's the foundation of success. Make failure your teacher, not your master, and watch how quickly your relationship with challenge and risk transforms. Chapter 6. Building Unshakable Confidence from Within. Confidence is not something you're born with. It's something you build. And the difference between fake confidence and real confidence is simple. Fake confidence depends on external validation and perfect circumstances. while real confidence comes from internal strength and self-trust. The mentally strong don't wait to feel confident before taking action. They build confidence through action. Most people have confidence backwards. They think they need to feel confident before they can do confident things. But that's like saying you need to be in shape before you can exercise. Confidence is built the same way physical strength is built, through progressive training and consistent challenge. Every time you do something slightly outside your comfort zone and survive, you prove to yourself that you're more capable than you previously believed. The foundation of unshakable confidence is self-trust. This means knowing that regardless of what happens, you can handle it. It's not the belief that everything will go perfectly. It's the belief that even when things go wrong, you have the resources, creativity, and persistence to figure it out. This kind of confidence doesn't come from avoiding challenges. It comes from facing challenges and discovering your own resilience. Self-trust is built through keeping promises to yourself. Every time you say you're going to do something and then follow through, you deposit credibility into your own mental bank account. Every time you make an excuse or break a commitment to yourself, you make a withdrawal. The balance of this account determines your level of self-confidence. Start building self-trust with small, manageable commitments. If you say you're going to wake up at 6 a.m., do it. If you say you're going to exercise 3 times this week, do it. If you say you're going to complete a project by Friday, do it. These might seem like minor things, but your subconscious mind is watching everything you do and drawing conclusions about your reliability and capability. Real confidence also comes from competence. The more skilled you become at things that matter to you, the more confident you naturally feel. But here's the key. You don't need to be perfect or even expert level to be confident. You just need to be committed to continuous improvement. Confidence comes from the knowledge that even if you don't know everything now, you have the ability and commitment to learn whatever you need to learn. This is why the most confident people are often the biggest students. They're not confident because they know everything. They're confident because they trust their ability to figure things out. They see every new challenge as an opportunity to expand their capabilities rather than as a threat to their self-image. Another crucial element of building confidence is changing your internal dialogue. Most people talk to themselves in ways they would never talk to their best friend. They're their own worst critic, constantly pointing out flaws, predicting failures, and highlighting inadequacies. This internal negativity is confidence poison. Start paying attention to your self-talk and consciously choose to speak to yourself with the same kindness and encouragement you would offer someone you care about. Instead of, "I'm terrible at this," try, "I'm learning and improving." Instead of, "I always mess up," try, "I'm human and I'm growing." Instead of, "I can't do this," try, "This is challenging and I'm becoming stronger by facing it." Confidence also requires accepting yourself as you are while working to become who you want to be. This seems contradictory, but it's actually the key to authentic confidence. When you constantly judge yourself for not being perfect, you waste enormous amounts of mental energy that could be used for growth and improvement. Self-acceptance doesn't mean self-satisfaction or giving up on improvement. It means acknowledging your current reality without adding layers of judgment and shame. From this place of honest self-awareness, you can make genuine improvements rather than trying to fix imaginary flaws or live up to impossible standards. Physical practices can also significantly boost confidence. The way you carry your body influences the way you feel about yourself. Stand up straight. Make eye contact, speak clearly, and move with purpose. Your brain takes cues from your body language, and when you act confident physically, you begin to feel confident mentally. Regular exercise is particularly powerful for building confidence because it provides tangible evidence of your growing strength and capability. Every workout you complete, every personal record you set, every physical challenge you overcome sends a clear message to your subconscious mind. You are someone who does difficult things and gets stronger through effort. The mentally strong also understand that confidence is not about never feeling doubt or fear. Everyone experiences moments of uncertainty and insecurity. The difference is that confident people feel the doubt and act anyway. They don't wait for doubt to disappear before taking action. They take action despite the doubt. This is why confident people often seem fearless to others. But they're not actually experiencing less fear. They're just not letting fear control their decisions. They've learned that courage is not the absence of fear, it's action in the presence of fear. Every time you act courageously despite feeling afraid, you build both courage and confidence. Finally, real confidence requires letting go of the need for everyone's approval. When your confidence depends on what other people think of you, it becomes fragile and inconsistent because you can't control other people's opinions. But when your confidence comes from your own values, standards, and self-trust, it becomes unshakable because it's based on factors you can control. This doesn't mean being arrogant or dismissive of feedback. It means being secure enough in your own worth that you can receive criticism without being destroyed by it, and praise without being inflated by it. You listen to input from others, but your sense of self-worth doesn't rise and fall based on their approval or disapproval. Building unshakable confidence is a process, not an event. It requires consistent action, honest self-reflection, and patience with your own growth. But every step you take builds momentum, and every challenge you face with courage adds to your foundation of self-trust. Start where you are, use what you have, do what you can, and watch your confidence grow stronger every day. Chapter 7. Mastering your emotional state under pressure. Pressure reveals character, but it doesn't have to destroy composure. The ability to maintain emotional control when everything around you is chaotic is one of the most valuable skills you can develop. While others are losing their minds, making poor decisions, and letting stress overwhelm them, you can be the calm in the storm, the steady force that others look to for stability and leadership. Emotional mastery under pressure starts with understanding what pressure actually is. Pressure is not an external force that happens to you. Pressure is your internal response to external circumstances. Two people can face the exact same challenging situation, and one will thrive while the other crumbles. The difference is not in the situation, it's in their interpretation and response to the situation. This means that your ability to handle pressure is not determined by what happens to you. It's determined by what happens inside you when external events occur. This is incredibly empowering because it means you have far more control over your experience of pressure than you might realize. You can't always control what happens to you, but you can always influence how you respond to what happens to you. The first key to emotional mastery under pressure is developing awareness of your stress signals. Most people don't notice they're becoming stressed until they're already overwhelmed. But stress builds gradually, and there are early warning signs you can learn to recognize. Shallow breathing, tense muscles, racing thoughts, increased irritability, or feeling rushed even when you have adequate time. When you can catch stress early, you can address it before it escalates into overwhelming pressure. This might mean taking a few deep breaths, doing some quick stretches, stepping away from the situation for a moment, or simply reminding yourself that you have the resources to handle whatever you're facing. The second key is controlling your breathing. Your breath is the bridge between your conscious and unconscious mind, and it's the fastest way to influence your emotional state. When you're under pressure, your breathing typically becomes shallow and rapid, which sends stress signals throughout your entire system. But when you consciously slow down and deepen your breathing, you activate your parasympathetic nervous system and create a state of calm alertness. Practice this technique. When you notice pressure building, take 4 counts to breathe in, hold for 4 counts, breathe out for 6 counts, and hold empty for 2 counts. Repeat this cycle 4 to 6 times. This specific pattern has been proven to quickly shift your nervous system from stress mode to recovery mode, allowing you to think more clearly and respond more effectively. The third key is reframing pressure as privilege. Instead of seeing high-pressure situations as burdens or threats, train yourself to see them as opportunities. Pressure means something important is happening. Pressure means you're in a position where your actions matter. Pressure means you're being trusted with something significant. This reframe alone can transform your relationship with challenging situations. Champions don't avoid pressure, they seek it out, because they know that's where peak performance happens. They understand that pressure is not the enemy of success, it's the catalyst for success. When you start seeing pressure as the price of playing at a higher level rather than as punishment for being inadequate, everything changes. The fourth key is focusing on process rather than outcome when under pressure. When you focus on the specific outcome you want to achieve, especially when that outcome is very important to you, pressure increases because you're trying to control something that's not entirely within your control. But when you focus on executing the process you know gives you the best chance of success, pressure decreases because you're focusing on things you can control. Instead of thinking, I have to make this sale or I have to give a perfect presentation, think, I'm going to prepare thoroughly, listen carefully, communicate clearly, and trust the process. Instead of, I can't mess this up, think, I'm going to do my best work and learn from whatever happens. The fifth key is using physical techniques to manage emotional state. Your body and mind are connected, and you can influence your mental state through physical actions. When you're feeling overwhelmed, change your posture, relax your facial muscles, and move your body. Sometimes a quick walk or a few jumping jacks can completely shift your emotional state. Progressive muscle relaxation is particularly effective under pressure. Systematically tense and then relax different muscle groups in your body, starting with your toes and working up to your head. This technique helps you become aware of physical tension you might not have noticed and gives you a way to release it quickly. The sixth key is maintaining perspective. When you're in the middle of a high-pressure situation, it's easy to catastrophize and imagine that everything depends on this one moment. But most situations that feel critically important in the moment are much less significant when viewed from a longer time perspective. Ask yourself, will this matter in 5 years? Will this matter in 5 months? Will this matter in 5 days? Often, situations that feel overwhelming in the moment lose their emotional charge when you realize they're not as permanently significant as they feel. The seventh key is preparation and visualization. The more prepared you are for high-pressure situations, the less pressure you'll feel when they occur. This includes both practical preparation, learning the skills and knowledge you need, and mental preparation, visualizing yourself handling challenging situations with composure and effectiveness. Spend time regularly visualizing yourself in high-pressure situations, performing at your best. See yourself staying calm, thinking clearly, and executing effectively, regardless of external circumstances. The more vividly and frequently you visualize these scenarios, the more prepared your mind will be to actually perform this way when real pressure situations arise. Remember, everyone feels pressure, but not everyone lets pressure control their performance. The mentally strong feel the same physiological responses to stress that everyone else feels, but they've trained themselves to interpret those sensations differently and respond more effectively. They see increased heart rate as preparation for peak performance rather than as a sign of weakness. They see adrenaline as fuel for focus rather than as cause for panic. Mastering your emotional state under pressure is not about eliminating stress. It's about channeling stress productively. It's about staying connected to your skills, values, and objectives, even when external circumstances are challenging. With consistent practice of these techniques, you can develop the ability to remain calm, focused, and effective, regardless of how intense the pressure becomes. Chapter 8. The Power of Mental Rehearsal and Visualization. Your mind cannot tell the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real experience. This is not metaphor or wishful thinking. This is neuroscience. When you visualize performing an action, the same neural pathways fire as when you actually perform that action. This means you can literally train your brain for success without ever leaving your chair. Elite athletes have known this secret for decades. They spend almost as much time mentally practicing their sport as they do physically practicing it. Olympic competitors visualize their routines hundreds of times before they ever step onto the competition floor. Professional athletes mentally rehearse game situations so thoroughly that when those situations occur in real games, their responses are automatic and precise. But mental rehearsal isn't just for athletes. It's one of the most powerful tools available for developing mental strength in any area of life. Whether you're preparing for a job interview, a difficult conversation, a business presentation, or any challenging situation, visualization can dramatically improve your performance and confidence. The key to effective visualization is specificity and emotional engagement. Vague, general visualizations produce vague, general results. But when you create detailed, emotionally engaging mental rehearsals, you're programming your brain for specific success patterns. You need to see, hear, feel, and emotionally experience the scenarios you're visualizing. Start by identifying the challenging situations you want to prepare for mentally. These might be scenarios where you typically feel nervous, situations where you've struggled in the past, or new challenges you haven't faced before. The more specific you can be about the circumstances, the more effective your mental rehearsal will be. When you visualize, engage all your senses. Don't just see yourself succeeding. Hear the sounds that would be present. Feel the physical sensations. Notice the smells and temperatures. And most importantly, feel the emotions of confidence, calm, and competence. The more senses you engage, the more real the experience becomes to your subconscious mind. Mental rehearsal is most effective when you visualize the process, not just the outcome. Instead of just imagining yourself giving a great presentation, visualize yourself preparing thoroughly, arriving early, connecting with the audience, handling questions confidently, and managing any unexpected challenges that might arise. This gives your brain a complete roadmap for success rather than just a destination. Also, visualize potential obstacles and your effective responses to them. This is called negative visualization. and it's incredibly powerful for building mental resilience. If you only visualize everything going perfectly, you'll be unprepared when challenges arise. But if you mentally rehearse handling difficulties with composure and skill, you'll be ready for whatever actually happens. For example, if you're visualizing a job interview, don't just imagine yourself answering questions perfectly. Also visualize yourself staying calm if you don't know an answer, recovering gracefully if you misspeak, and maintaining confidence even if the interviewer seems unimpressed. This mental preparation makes you much more resilient when facing real challenges. Timing matters with visualization. The most effective mental rehearsal happens when you're relaxed and focused, typically first thing in the morning or last thing at night. Your subconscious mind is most receptive during these times, and the neural pathways you create are more likely to be retained and strengthened. Consistency is crucial for mental rehearsal to be effective. Visualizing once or twice won't create lasting change, but visualizing regularly over time will literally rewire your brain for the performance patterns you're practicing. Make mental rehearsal a daily habit, even if you only spend 5 to 10 minutes on it. Mental rehearsal is also powerful for building general mental strength patterns. You can visualize yourself staying calm under pressure, persisting through setbacks, maintaining focus during distractions, and responding to criticism with composure. These general resilience patterns will serve you in countless specific situations. Use visualization to rehearse your ideal responses to common mental strength challenges. Visualize yourself receiving bad news and responding with acceptance and problem-solving rather than panic or despair. Visualize yourself facing a major setback and choosing to learn from it and adjust your approach rather than giving up. Visualize yourself being criticized and receiving the feedback thoughtfully rather than defensively. The language you use during visualization also matters. Speak to yourself in the same encouraging, confident way you would speak to someone you're trying to help succeed. Use present tense rather than future tense to make the experience feel more real and immediate. Instead of, "I will handle this well," use, "I am handling this well." Physical practice enhances mental rehearsal. If you're visualizing giving a presentation, practice your gestures and movements while you visualize. If you're rehearsing a difficult conversation, practice your posture and facial expressions. The more you can integrate physical and mental practice, the more complete your preparation becomes. Mental rehearsal is also valuable for recovery and learning from actual experiences. After challenging situations, visualize how you could have handled them even better. This isn't about beating yourself up for imperfect performance. It's about programming your brain with improved response patterns for future similar situations. When real challenging situations arise, you'll often find that they feel familiar because you've already experienced them mentally. This familiarity reduces anxiety and increases confidence because your brain recognizes the situation and already has effective response patterns prepared. The combination of mental rehearsal and actual practice is incredibly powerful. Physical practice without mental rehearsal is incomplete because you're not preparing your mind. Mental rehearsal without physical practice is also incomplete because you're not integrating your preparation with real-world execution. But when you combine both consistently, you create unstoppable preparation for success. Remember, your brain is constantly rehearsing something. If you're not consciously directing your mental rehearsal toward positive, strength-building scenarios, your brain will default to rehearsing worry, doubt, and failure scenarios. Every time you imagine things going wrong, you're training your brain for poor performance. Every time you visualize yourself succeeding, you're training your brain for excellent performance. Take control of your mental rehearsal. Use this incredible power deliberately and consistently to program your mind for the mental strength and performance you want to develop. Your future self will thank you for the preparation you do today. Chapter 9. Turning setbacks into comebacks. Setbacks are not roadblocks. They're redirections. Every person who has achieved anything significant has faced moments when everything seemed to be falling apart, when progress stopped, when plans failed, and when success seemed impossible. The difference between those who eventually succeed and those who give up is not that successful people face fewer setbacks, it's that they've mastered the art of turning setbacks into comebacks. The first truth about setbacks is that they're inevitable. If you're not experiencing setbacks, you're not pushing yourself hard enough. Setbacks are proof that you're attempting something worthwhile, something challenging, something that requires you to grow beyond your current capabilities. Easy goals don't produce setbacks because they don't require you to stretch beyond what you already know how to do. When a setback occurs, your first response determines everything that follows. Most people respond to setbacks with emotion, anger, frustration, disappointment, or despair. These emotional responses are natural and human, but they're not productive. The mentally strong allow themselves to feel the initial emotional impact of a setback, but they don't dwell there. They quickly shift from emotional reaction to strategic analysis. The strategic response to setbacks involves asking better questions. Instead of, "Why me?" ask, "What now?" Instead of, "This isn't fair," ask, "What can I learn from this?" Instead of, "I knew this wouldn't work," ask, "How can I adjust my approach?" The quality of your questions determines the quality of your responses, and better questions lead to better outcomes. Every setback contains valuable information that can make you stronger and smarter if you're willing to extract it. This information might be about flaws in your strategy, gaps in your skills, unrealistic timelines, or factors you hadn't considered. But this information is only valuable if you analyze it objectively rather than emotionally. Create a setback analysis process that you follow consistently. When something doesn't go as planned, ask yourself, what specifically went wrong? What factors contributed to this outcome? What was within my control and what wasn't? What skills or knowledge do I need to develop? What adjustments should I make to my approach? What can I do differently next time? This analysis should be honest but not harsh. The goal is not to judge yourself for making mistakes. It's to learn from those mistakes so you don't repeat them. Self-criticism that leads to insight and improvement is productive. Self-criticism that leads to shame and paralysis is destructive. Setbacks also provide opportunities to test and strengthen your resilience. Every time you face a setback and choose to continue rather than quit, you prove to yourself that you have more strength than you realized. You build evidence of your own persistence and problem-solving ability. This evidence becomes the foundation for unshakable confidence in your ability to handle future challenges. The speed of your recovery from setbacks is often more important than the magnitude of the setback itself. Minor setbacks that paralyze you for months are more damaging than major setbacks that you recover from quickly. Develop the ability to process setbacks efficiently. Feel the disappointment, extract the lessons, adjust your approach, and get back into action. This doesn't mean rushing through the emotional processing of setbacks. Genuine disappointment and frustration need to be acknowledged and felt. But there's a difference between processing emotions and wallowing in them. Processing moves you forward. Wallowing keeps you stuck. Set a time limit for emotional processing then shift into action mode. Reframe setbacks as course corrections rather than failures. A course correction is not a sign that you're going in the wrong direction. It's a sign that you're adjusting your path to reach your destination more effectively. Pilots constantly make course corrections during flights, not because they're bad pilots, but because conditions change and adjustments are necessary for safe arrival. Use setbacks as motivation rather than discouragement. Let the disappointment fuel your determination rather than drain your energy. Channel the frustration into focus rather than despair. Some of the greatest comebacks in history were powered by the energy generated from devastating setbacks. Build setback recovery into your planning process. Don't just plan for success, plan for challenges. Have backup plans ready. Know what you'll do if your first approach doesn't work. Anticipate potential obstacles and prepare responses. This preparation doesn't attract setbacks. It prepares you to handle them effectively when they occur. Surround yourself with people who have successfully navigated setbacks. Their stories will remind you that setbacks are temporary and surmountable. Their perspectives will help you see opportunities where you might only see obstacles. Their encouragement will sustain you during the difficult process of turning setbacks into comebacks. Study the comeback stories of people in your field or area of interest. Notice how they responded to setbacks, what they learned from them, and how they used them as fuel for greater success. These stories are not just inspiration, they're instruction manuals for your own comeback process. Remember that comebacks are often more impressive than initial successes. A comeback demonstrates resilience, adaptability, and mental strength in ways that easy success never can. The people who overcome significant setbacks to achieve their goals inspire others and build character that serves them for life. Focus on progress, not perfection. Comebacks don't happen overnight. They happen through consistent effort over time. Every small step forward after a setback is progress worth celebrating. Every day you choose to continue despite disappointment is a victory worth acknowledging. The mental strength required to turn setbacks into comebacks is not about never feeling discouraged. It's about feeling discouraged and choosing to act constructively anyway. It's about experiencing disappointment without being defeated by it. It's about acknowledging that this setback is not the end of your story. It's just the beginning of your comeback chapter. Your setbacks are not punishments, they're preparation. They're not evidence that you should quit. They're evidence that you're worthy of the character development that comes from overcoming challenges. Every setback you transform into a comeback makes you stronger, wiser, and more prepared for the success that's waiting for you on the other side of persistence. Chapter 10. Building discipline that never breaks. Discipline is not about punishment or restriction. It's about freedom. It's the freedom that comes from being able to do what you say you're going to do, when you say you're going to do it, regardless of how you feel in the moment. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment, between dreams and reality, between who you are and who you want to become. Most people misunderstand discipline completely. They think it's about forcing yourself to do things you hate or depriving yourself of things you enjoy. But real discipline is about aligning your actions with your values and long-term goals, even when your emotions are pulling you in different directions. It's about being reliable to yourself and trustworthy in your own commitments. The foundation of unbreakable discipline is clarity of purpose. When you have compelling reasons for your goals, discipline becomes much easier because you're not just forcing yourself through arbitrary tasks. You're choosing actions that move you towards something meaningful. Weak motivation requires strong discipline, but Strong motivation makes discipline flow naturally. Take time to connect deeply with why your goals matter to you. Don't settle for surface-level reasons like, "I should," or "it would be nice." Dig deeper. How will achieving this goal change your life? How will it affect the people you care about? What will become possible for you that isn't possible now? The stronger your why, the easier your discipline becomes. Discipline is built through small, consistent actions rather than heroic efforts. It's better to do something small every day than something big occasionally. If you want to build physical fitness, it's better to exercise for 15 minutes daily than for 3 hours once a week. If you want to develop a skill, it's better to practice for 20 minutes daily than for 4 hours once a month. This is because discipline is like a muscle that gets stronger through regular use. Every time you do something you committed to doing, especially when you don't feel like doing it, you strengthen your discipline muscle. Every time you choose long-term benefit over short-term comfort, you build capacity for future self-control. Start building discipline with commitments you can absolutely keep. If you haven't been exercising at all, don't commit to working out for an hour every day. Commit to 10 minutes of movement every day. If you haven't been reading regularly, don't commit to reading for 2 hours daily. Commit to reading for 10 minutes daily. Success builds momentum, and momentum makes discipline easier. The key is consistency, not intensity. Once you've established the habit of consistent action, you can gradually increase the intensity or duration. But if you start with commitments that are too ambitious, you'll likely fail, which weakens your confidence in your own discipline rather than strengthening it. Environmental design is crucial for building discipline. Your environment should make good choices easier and bad choices harder. If you want to eat healthier, fill your kitchen with healthy foods and remove junk food. If you want to read more, keep books visible and accessible while putting your phone in another room. If you want to exercise regularly, lay out your workout clothes the night before. Don't rely on willpower alone to overcome environmental obstacles. Willpower is a limited resource that gets depleted throughout the day. But environmental design works automatically without requiring conscious effort. The easier you make the right choices and the harder you make the wrong choices, the more disciplined you'll naturally become. Discipline also requires learning to delay gratification effectively. Most people give in to immediate impulses because they haven't trained themselves to pause between impulse and action. This pause is where discipline lives. When you want to quit, take a deep breath and ask yourself, what would the person I'm trying to become do in this situation? Practice the 10-minute rule for breaking bad habits and building good ones. When you want to do something that goes against your goals, commit to waiting 10 minutes before giving in. Often, the impulse will pass during those 10 minutes. When you don't want to do something that supports your goals, commit to doing it for just 10 minutes. Often, starting is the hardest part. And once you begin, momentum carries you forward. Track your discipline daily. Keep a simple record of whether you followed through on your commitments each day. This tracking serves multiple purposes. It makes you aware of your patterns, it provides accountability, and it gives you data to analyze and improve. Seeing a streak of successful days motivates you to keep the streak alive. Build discipline in multiple areas of your life simultaneously, but gradually. Start with one area until it becomes automatic, then add another. Having discipline in one area of life makes it easier to develop discipline in other areas because you're strengthening your overall capacity for self-control. Learn to separate discipline from motivation. Motivation gets you started, but discipline keeps you going. Motivation is emotional and inconsistent, but discipline is logical and reliable. Don't wait to feel motivated to do what you've committed to do. Do it because you committed to it, regardless of how you feel. This doesn't mean ignoring your emotions or treating yourself like a robot. It means recognizing the difference between temporary feelings and permanent commitments. Your feelings will change throughout the day, but your commitments should remain stable. Let your values and goals guide your actions, not your moods. Celebrate small victories in discipline. Every time you follow through on a commitment, especially when you didn't feel like it, acknowledge that success. These small celebrations reinforce the neural pathways associated with self-control and make future discipline easier. Prepare for moments when discipline will be tested. Everyone has times when they're tired, stressed, or facing unusual circumstances. Plan for these moments. What will you do when you're too tired to exercise? What will you do when you're too busy to read? Having predetermined responses to challenging situations helps you maintain discipline even under pressure. Remember that discipline creates freedom, not restriction. The more disciplined you become, the more options you have in life. The person who can't control their spending has fewer financial options. The person who can't control their health habits has fewer energy options. The person who can't control their time has fewer achievement options. But the person who has developed strong discipline has maximum freedom to choose their path and pursue their goals. Unbreakable discipline is not about being perfect. It's about being consistent. It's not about never making mistakes. It's about getting back on track quickly when you do make mistakes. Build it gradually. Practice it daily. And watch how it transforms every area of your life. Chapter 11. The Mindset of Champions. Champions are not born. They're forged through thousands of small decisions that ordinary people aren't willing to make. The champion mindset is not about being naturally gifted or lucky. It's about developing a specific way of thinking that turns obstacles into opportunities, pressure into performance, and setbacks into comebacks. The first characteristic of the champion mindset is outcome independence. Champions care deeply about winning, but they don't attach their self-worth to specific outcomes. They understand that they can only control their preparation, their effort, and their response to circumstances. They focus intensely on these controllable factors and let go of attachment to results they can't guarantee. This doesn't mean champions don't care about results. They care tremendously. But they know that the best way to achieve great results is to focus on great process. When you're obsessed with outcomes, you create pressure and anxiety that actually hurt your performance. When you're obsessed with process, you create focus and flow that enhance your performance. Champions also have a different relationship with competition. While others see competitors as threats, champions see them as opportunities to elevate their own performance. They understand that iron sharpens iron, and that competing against excellent opponents makes them better than they could ever become in isolation. The champion mindset embraces competition because it reveals your current level and shows you what's possible. When you compete against people who are better than you, you don't just learn where you need to improve. You expand your concept of what's achievable. Champions seek out strong competition because they know it accelerates their growth. Another hallmark of the champion mindset is relentless improvement. Champions are never satisfied with their current level of performance, not out of insecurity, but out of curiosity about how good they can become. They view themselves as works in progress, always looking for ways to get 1% better. This improvement obsession applies to everything they do. Champions don't just try to improve their main skills. They look for advantages in preparation, recovery, mental training, strategic thinking, and every other aspect of their performance. They understand that championships are often won by marginal gains in areas that others ignore. Champions also have extraordinary pain tolerance, not just physical pain, but the psychological pain of delayed gratification, intense training, public failure, and constant pressure to perform. They've learned to reframe pain as information rather than punishment. When something hurts, they ask what it's teaching them rather than how to avoid it. This pain tolerance is developed gradually through progressive exposure to discomfort. Champions don't start with the ability to handle extreme pressure. They build it by consistently choosing difficult challenges over comfortable alternatives. Every time they push through discomfort instead of avoiding it, they expand their capacity for future challenges. The champion mindset also includes extreme ownership of results. When champions win, they celebrate briefly and then analyze what they can do even better next time. When they lose, they don't make excuses or blame external factors. They take full responsibility for their performance and immediately focus on what they can control going forward. This ownership extends beyond their own actions to their responses to everything that affects them. Champions understand that while they can't control what happens to them, they have complete control over how they interpret and respond to what happens to them. This radical responsibility gives them power in every situation. Champions think in systems rather than goals. While others focus on specific outcomes they want to achieve, champions focus on building systems and processes that consistently produce excellent results. They understand that goals are achieved through systems, and the quality of your system determines the quality of your outcomes. For example, instead of just setting a goal to win a championship, a champion builds a system of daily training, proper nutrition, adequate recovery, mental preparation, and strategic analysis. The championship becomes a natural result of excellent systems rather than something they have to force through willpower. The champion mindset also includes long-term thinking that most people can't sustain. Champions are willing to sacrifice short-term comfort and pleasure for long-term excellence. They make decisions based on where they want to be in 5 years, not where they want to be in 5 minutes. This long-term perspective helps them maintain consistency during periods when progress seems slow or non-existent. They understand that excellence is built through thousands of small, often invisible improvements that compound over time. They trust the process even when they can't see immediate results. Champions also have a unique relationship with failure. They don't fear failure. They expect it as part of the learning process. They understand that the only way to find your limits is to go beyond them. And going beyond your limits inevitably involves some failures along the way. When champions fail, they fail fast and learn faster. They don't waste time being embarrassed or disappointed. They immediately shift into analysis mode. What went wrong? What can be learned? What needs to be adjusted? They treat failures as data points rather than judgments about their worth or potential. Finally, champions have developed the ability to perform their best when it matters most. While others crumble under pressure, champions rise to the occasion. This isn't because they don't feel pressure, it's because they've trained themselves to channel pressure into enhanced focus and performance. This clutch performance is developed through deliberate practice under pressure. Champions regularly put themselves in high-stakes situations during training, so that when real pressure situations arise, they feel familiar rather than overwhelming. They've learned to see pressure as fuel for peak performance rather than as a threat to their success. The champion mindset is not reserved for professional athletes or elite performers. These same mental patterns can be applied to any area of life where you want to achieve excellence. Whether you're building a business, developing relationships, pursuing education, or working toward any meaningful goal, thinking like a champion will accelerate your progress and enhance your results. Start developing your champion mindset today by choosing process over outcomes, embracing competition as growth opportunity, committing to relentless improvement, increasing your pain tolerance, taking extreme ownership, building systems for success, thinking long-term, learning from failures, and preparing to perform under pressure. These are the mental patterns that separate champions from everyone else. Chapter 12. Handling criticism and rejection like a pro. Criticism and rejection are not personal attacks, they're professional development opportunities. The ability to receive negative feedback without being destroyed by it and to face rejection without losing confidence is one of the most valuable skills you can develop. While others are crushed by criticism and paralyzed by rejection, you can use both as fuel for growth and improvement. The first key to handling criticism effectively is separating the message from the messenger. Often, valuable feedback comes wrapped in poor delivery. Someone might be harsh, rude, or even hostile in how they present their criticism, but that doesn't automatically invalidate the content of what they're saying. Your job is to extract any useful information while ignoring the emotional packaging. This requires developing emotional detachment from feedback. When someone criticizes you, your natural response is to feel defensive, hurt, or angry. These emotions are normal, but they cloud your ability to evaluate the criticism objectively. Train yourself to pause before responding to criticism and ask, is there any truth in this that could help me improve? Not all criticism is valid or useful, but most criticism contains at least a grain of truth that you can use constructively. Even unfair or poorly delivered criticism can teach you something about how others perceive you or how you might communicate more effectively. The key is to mine for value rather than defending against attack. Develop a standard process for handling criticism. First, listen completely, without interrupting or defending. Second, ask clarifying questions to understand the feedback fully. Third, thank the person for their input, even if you disagree with it. Fourth, take time privately to evaluate the criticism objectively. Fifth, implement any valuable insights you've discovered. This process keeps you in control of your response, rather than being reactive. It also demonstrates professionalism and maturity, which often diffuses tension and creates better relationships even with people who initially delivered harsh criticism. Rejection is even more challenging for most people because it feels like a judgment of your entire worth rather than just feedback on specific performance. But rejection is not a verdict on your value as a person. It's simply information about fit, timing, readiness, or circumstances that are often beyond your control. The mentally strong understand that rejection is a numbers game. Every no brings you closer to the yes you're seeking. Sales professionals know this instinctively. They don't take rejection personally because they understand that most prospects will say no, and their job is to find the ones who will say yes. This same mindset applies to any situation where rejection is possible. Reframe rejection as redirection. Sometimes what feels like rejection is actually protection from situations that wouldn't have been right for you anyway. The job you didn't get might have been a poor fit. The relationship that didn't work out might have caused you unhappiness. The opportunity that was denied might have prevented you from finding something better. This doesn't mean being passive about rejection or not trying to improve. It means maintaining perspective and recognizing that rejection often has nothing to do with your worth or potential. Sometimes you're rejected because of factors completely outside your control. Budget constraints, internal politics, personal preferences, timing, or simply bad luck. Build rejection tolerance through progressive exposure. Start seeking out situations where rejection is likely, beginning with low-stakes scenarios and gradually working up to higher-stakes situations. Apply for positions that stretch your qualifications. Ask for opportunities that seem beyond your current level. Make requests that people might refuse. Each rejection you survive without being devastated proves to yourself that rejection is not fatal. You discover that rejection often has nothing to do with you personally and everything to do with circumstances you can't control. This builds confidence to take bigger risks and pursue more ambitious goals. Learn to separate your actions from your identity when facing criticism or rejection. You are not your performance, your proposals, your requests, or your current level of skill. You are a person who is constantly growing, learning, and improving. When someone criticizes your work, they're not criticizing you as a person. When someone rejects your proposal, they're not rejecting your potential. This separation is crucial for maintaining confidence while still being open to feedback. If your identity is tied to never being wrong or never being rejected, you'll either avoid all risks or be devastated when criticism and rejection inevitably occur. But if you see yourself as someone who is committed to growth, criticism becomes data for improvement, and rejection becomes information for adjustment. Use criticism and rejection as motivation rather than discouragement. Let negative feedback fuel your determination to improve rather than drain your energy. Let rejection strengthen your resolve rather than weaken your confidence. Some of the greatest successes in history were powered by the energy generated from criticism and rejection. Document the criticism and rejection you receive, along with your responses and improvements. This creates a record of your growth and resilience that you can refer to during future challenging times. It also helps you identify patterns in the feedback you receive that might indicate areas for focused improvement. Surround yourself with people who have successfully navigated criticism and rejection in your field. Their perspectives will help you maintain proper context when facing negative feedback. Their stories will remind you that criticism and rejection are normal parts of pursuing anything worthwhile. Remember that the most successful people often face the most criticism and rejection because they're attempting the most challenging and visible goals. If you're not receiving any criticism or rejection, you might not be pushing yourself hard enough or taking big enough risks. Develop thick skin without developing a closed mind. This means becoming resilient to the emotional impact of criticism and rejection while remaining open to the valuable information they might contain. It's a delicate balance, but it's essential for continued growth and success. The goal is not to become immune to criticism and rejection. It's to become skilled at processing them constructively. Feel the initial emotional impact. Extract any valuable information. Make appropriate adjustments, and keep moving toward your goals. This is how professionals handle criticism and rejection, and it's how you'll transform negative feedback into positive growth. Chapter 13. Creating Unshakable. Inner Strength. Inner strength is not about never feeling weak, scared, or uncertain. Inner strength is about feeling those emotions and continuing to act in alignment with your values and goals anyway. It's the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you can handle whatever life presents, not because nothing bad will happen, but because you've developed the resources to deal with whatever does happen. The foundation of inner strength is self-knowledge. You cannot be truly strong if you don't understand your own values, triggers, strengths, and weaknesses. Most people drift through life reacting to circumstances without ever developing a clear sense of who they are and what they stand for. But inner strength requires anchoring yourself to principles that don't change when circumstances do. Spend time identifying your core values, the principles that guide your decisions regardless of external pressure or temporary emotions. These might include integrity, courage, compassion, excellence, family, freedom, or service to others. Your values become your internal compass, helping you navigate difficult decisions and maintain consistency even when everything around you is chaotic. Inner strength also requires developing a strong relationship with yourself. Most people are their own worst critics, constantly judging themselves harshly and focusing on their flaws and failures. But you can't build inner strength on a foundation of self-criticism and self-doubt. You need to become your own best supporter while still maintaining honest self-awareness. This means treating yourself with the same kindness and encouragement you would offer a good friend facing similar challenges. It means acknowledging your mistakes without condemning yourself for making them. It means celebrating your progress without waiting for perfection. It means supporting your own growth rather than sabotaging it with negative self-talk. Inner strength is built through facing your fears rather than avoiding them. Every time you do something that scares you and survive, you prove to yourself that you're braver than you realized. Every time you confront a difficult situation instead of running away, you build evidence of your own capability and resilience. This doesn't mean being reckless or seeking out danger unnecessarily. It means gradually expanding your comfort zone by taking on challenges that stretch your current capabilities. It means saying yes to opportunities that excite and intimidate you simultaneously. It means having difficult conversations instead of avoiding them, pursuing ambitious goals despite uncertainty, and standing up for your values even when it's uncomfortable. Inner strength also requires learning to be comfortable with uncertainty. Most people exhaust themselves trying to control outcomes they can't control or predict futures they can't know. But uncertainty is a fundamental part of life, and trying to eliminate it completely only creates anxiety and paralysis. Develop comfort with not knowing what will happen next. Focus on preparing yourself to handle various possibilities rather than trying to guarantee specific outcomes. Build flexibility and adaptability rather than rigid plans. Trust your ability to figure things out as you go, rather than needing to have everything figured out in advance. Physical practices significantly contribute to inner strength. Regular exercise doesn't just build physical fitness, it builds mental resilience. When you push through physical discomfort during workouts, you're training your mind to persist through other forms of discomfort. When you complete challenging physical goals, you build confidence in your ability to achieve difficult objectives in other areas. Cold exposure, whether through cold showers, ice baths, or winter swimming, is particularly powerful for building inner strength. The shock of cold water triggers your stress response, and learning to stay calm and breathe deeply while experiencing this stress trains your nervous system to remain composed under pressure in other situations. Meditation and mindfulness practices are also crucial for developing inner strength. These practices teach you to observe your thoughts and emotions without being controlled by them. When you can watch your mental chatter without immediately reacting to it, you gain the space needed to choose your responses, rather than being driven by automatic patterns. Inner strength requires accepting responsibility for your life without taking responsibility for things beyond your control. This means owning your choices, your responses, and your efforts while releasing attachment to outcomes that depend on factors outside your influence. It means focusing your energy on what you can control, rather than wasting it on what you can't. Develop the ability to find meaning in difficult experiences. This doesn't mean pretending that painful situations are actually good or that you should be grateful for every hardship. It means looking for ways that challenges can contribute to your growth, strengthen your character, or deepen your compassion for others facing similar difficulties. Inner strength also includes the wisdom to know when to ask for help. True strength is not about handling everything alone. It's about using all available resources effectively. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is admit you need support, guidance, or assistance. Building a network of mentors, advisors, and supporters is a sign of strength, not weakness. Practice emotional regulation without emotional suppression. Inner strength doesn't mean never feeling strong emotions. It means feeling them fully while maintaining your ability to think clearly and act wisely. Learn to sit with difficult emotions without immediately trying to escape them or being overwhelmed by them. Create rituals and practices that connect you to your inner strength regularly. This might include morning meditation, evening reflection, journaling, prayer, or time in nature. These practices remind you of your values, your growth, and your capability when daily stresses threaten to overwhelm you. Remember that inner strength is developed gradually through consistent practice, not achieved suddenly through heroic effort. Every small act of courage, every moment of persistence, every choice to act from your values rather than your fears contributes to building unshakable inner strength. The goal is not to become invulnerable or emotionless, but to become someone who can face whatever life presents with calmness, courage, and wisdom. This is the essence of inner strength, not the absence of challenge or difficulty, but the presence of resources to handle whatever comes your way. Chapter 14. Maintaining mental strength long-term. Building mental strength is challenging, but maintaining it over years and decades is even more difficult. The same way physical fitness requires ongoing maintenance, mental strength requires consistent practices to prevent atrophy and continue growing. The mentally strong don't achieve a certain level and then coast. They understand that strength is either growing or declining. There is no static state. The first key to long-term mental strength maintenance is creating sustainable systems rather than relying on motivation or willpower. Motivation fluctuates, willpower gets depleted, but systems operate automatically. Design daily, weekly, and monthly practices that reinforce your mental strength without requiring heroic effort or perfect conditions. These systems should include practices for each area of mental strength, regular challenges that build resilience, reflection time that maintains self-awareness, goal-setting sessions that provide direction, stress management techniques that prevent burnout, and learning activities that continue expanding your capabilities. Long-term mental strength also requires avoiding the plateau trap. When people achieve a certain level of success or comfort, they often stop pushing themselves and start maintaining rather than growing. But mental strength is like physical strength. If you stop challenging it, it begins to weaken. You need to continually raise the bar on what you expect from yourself. This doesn't mean constantly increasing the intensity of everything you do, which would lead to burnout. It means gradually expanding your challenges in strategic ways. Take on new responsibilities that stretch your capabilities. Seek out learning opportunities that push you outside your comfort zone. Set goals that require you to grow beyond your current level. Seasonal variation is important for long-term sustainability. Just as athletes have training seasons and recovery seasons, your mental strength development should include periods of intense challenge and periods of consolidation and recovery. This prevents burnout while maintaining steady long-term progress. Plan periods where you push yourself harder and take on bigger challenges, followed by periods where you focus more on maintaining gains and recovering your energy. This cyclical approach allows for consistent growth without the exhaustion that comes from constantly operating at maximum intensity. Regular assessment and adjustment of your mental strength practices is crucial for long-term success. What worked for you a year ago might not be optimal for your current situation. Your life circumstances change, your goals evolve, and your capabilities expand. So your mental strength maintenance program should evolve accordingly. Schedule quarterly reviews where you evaluate your mental strength practices. What's working well? What's not serving you anymore? What new challenges do you need to prepare for? What skills need development? What habits need adjustment? Use this information to refine your approach for the next quarter. Community and accountability play vital roles in long-term mental strength maintenance. Surrounding yourself with people who share similar values and commitments to growth provides support, inspiration, and accountability. These relationships help you maintain high standards when it would be easier to lower them. Seek out mentors who are further along the path you're traveling. Their guidance can help you avoid common pitfalls and accelerate your development. Also, look for opportunities to mentor others, as teaching and supporting others in their growth often reinforces your own commitment to mental strength. Long-term mental strength requires learning to find motivation in the process rather than just in outcomes. When you're only motivated by external achievements, your motivation becomes fragile because achievements are temporary and often followed by new challenges that can feel overwhelming. But when you learn to find satisfaction in the daily practice of mental strength, in the small victories of choosing discipline over comfort, persistence over quitting, and growth over stagnation, your motivation becomes more stable because it's based on things you can control every day. Stress management becomes increasingly important for long-term mental strength maintenance. The accumulation of stress over years can erode mental strength if not properly managed. Develop effective techniques for processing and releasing stress before it becomes overwhelming. This might include regular exercise, meditation, time in nature, creative pursuits, social connections, or other activities that help you recover from the demands of daily life. The specific techniques matter less than having reliable ways to restore your mental and emotional energy. Learning from setbacks becomes even more important over the long term. Everyone faces periods where their mental strength feels depleted or where they fall back into old patterns. The key is treating these setbacks as temporary and using them as information for improving your maintenance systems. When you notice your mental strength declining, don't panic or judge yourself harshly. Analyze what factors contributed to the decline and adjust your practices accordingly. Maybe you need more rest, different challenges, better stress management, or renewed connection to your core values. Legacy thinking helps maintain long-term mental strength by connecting your daily practices to something larger than immediate results. Consider what kind of person you want to become over the next decade. What kind of example do you want to set? What kind of impact do you want to have? How can your commitment to mental strength serve purposes beyond your personal benefit? Finally, remember that maintaining mental strength long-term is not about perfection. It's about consistency and resilience. You will have periods of strength and periods of struggle. You will face challenges that test your limits and setbacks that require rebuilding. This is normal and expected. The goal is not to avoid all difficulties or maintain peak strength at all times. The goal is to develop systems and practices that help you navigate the inevitable ups and downs of life while continuing to grow stronger over time. Focus on progress over perfection, systems over intensity, and consistency over heroic efforts. Long-term mental strength is built through thousands of small choices made consistently over years. Make those choices every day. Adjust your approach as needed, and trust the compound effect of persistent effort applied over time. Chapter 15. Living as your strongest self. Living as your strongest self is not about maintaining a facade of invincibility or never showing vulnerability. It's about operating from a place of authentic strength, where your actions consistently align with your values. Your responses reflect your wisdom rather than your impulses, and your presence contributes positively to every situation you encounter. Your strongest self is not a destination you reach. It's a way of being you choose, moment by moment, day by day. It's the version of you that shows up when you're at your best, the person you become when you're operating from your highest values and capabilities. The goal is not to be this person occasionally, but to make this your default way of being in the world. Living as your strongest self requires radical authenticity. This means being honest about your capabilities without false modesty, acknowledging your limitations without self-condemnation, and expressing your values without apology. Authentic strength doesn't pretend to be perfect, but it doesn't hide behind insecurity either. Many people alternate between arrogance and self-doubt, but authentic strength operates from quiet confidence. You know what you're capable of. You're honest about what you're still learning, and you're comfortable with both. This creates a presence that others find both inspiring and approachable. Your strongest self takes responsibility without taking blame. When things go wrong, you focus on what you can control and change rather than who's at fault. When things go right, you acknowledge your contribution without taking all the credit. This approach builds trust and respect, while maintaining your power to influence outcomes. Living as your strongest self means making decisions based on your values rather than your fears. When faced with choices, you ask, what would the person I'm committed to being do in this situation? Rather than, what's the safest option? Or, what will people think? This creates consistency in your character and builds trust in your own decision-making. Your strongest self serves something larger than immediate self-interest. This might be your family, your community, your profession, or a cause you believe in. When your strength is directed toward purposes beyond yourself, it becomes more sustainable and meaningful. You're not just building mental strength for its own sake. You're developing it to make a positive impact. The strongest version of yourself handles conflict constructively rather than avoiding it or escalating it. You address issues directly but respectfully. Seek solutions rather than blame, and maintain your composure even when others lose theirs. This doesn't mean being passive or avoiding difficult conversations. It means engaging with them skillfully. Living as your strongest self includes being a positive influence on others without trying to control them. Your strength becomes contagious, not through preaching or pressure, but through example. When people see you handling challenges with grace, pursuing goals with persistence, and treating others with respect, they're inspired to raise their own standards. Your strongest self maintains perspective during both successes and setbacks. When things go well, you celebrate appropriately without becoming arrogant or complacent. When things go poorly, you feel the disappointment without being consumed by it. This emotional regulation allows you to stay centered regardless of external circumstances. The process of living as your strongest self requires constant vigilance, not because you're fighting against who you are, but because you're choosing who you become. Every interaction is an opportunity to operate from strength or weakness. Every challenge is a chance to respond from wisdom or reactivity. Every decision is a moment to align with your values or compromise them. Create daily practices that connect you to your strongest self. This might include morning reflection on your intentions for the day, evening review of how you showed up, regular visualization of yourself operating at your best, or periodic recommitment to your core values. These practices keep you anchored to your highest self, even during stressful periods. Your strongest self is also your most generous self. When you're operating from genuine strength rather than insecurity, you have resources to offer others. You can be genuinely happy for their successes, supportive during their struggles, and encouraging of their growth. Strength shared multiplies rather than diminishes. Living as your strongest self means being comfortable with imperfection while striving for excellence. You hold yourself to high standards without being paralyzed by perfectionism. You learn from mistakes without being defined by them. You accept yourself as you are while working to become who you want to be. Your strongest self also knows when to rest. True strength includes the wisdom to recognize when you need recovery, support, or a different approach. It's not about constantly pushing harder, it's about consistently operating from your best self, which sometimes means stepping back to restore your resources. The impact of living as your strongest self extends far beyond your personal achievements. When you consistently operate from authentic strength, you give others permission to do the same. Your presence reminds people of their own potential. Your example shows them what's possible. Your strength becomes a gift to everyone you encounter. Remember that becoming your strongest self is not about reaching a fixed destination. It's about committing to a way of being. There will always be new challenges that reveal areas for growth, new opportunities that require expanded capabilities, and new situations that test your strength in different ways. The question is not whether you'll face difficulties. It's whether you'll face them as your strongest self. Will you respond from wisdom or reactivity? Will you act from your values or your fears? Will you contribute positively or negatively to the situations you encounter? These choices, made consistently over time, determine not just what you achieve, but who you become. Your strongest self is not a performance you put on for others. It's the authentic expression of your highest potential. It's who you are when you're operating from your deepest values, your clearest thinking, and your most generous spirit. This is not just a way to succeed. It's a way to live with integrity, purpose, and lasting satisfaction. The world needs people who are committed to being their strongest selves. Your strength, when genuinely developed and authentically expressed, becomes a force for positive change in every environment you enter. This is the ultimate purpose of developing mental strength, not just to achieve your goals, but to become someone whose presence makes the world a little bit better. Live as your strongest self, not occasionally when conditions are perfect, but consistently as a conscious choice. This is how mental strength transforms from a personal development goal into a way of being that enriches every aspect of your life and positively impacts everyone you meet.